All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football podcast. Today, I'm here with my man Nathan to break down the Pac-12, our 2021 predictions. How you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Wonderful, man. I'm finally ready to break down this conference. I think it's a really interesting one for the 2021 season. A lot of
Oh,
people
for
like to
sure.
disrespect the Pac-12 in terms of depth and whatnot, but I think depth is not going to be a concern with this conference whatsoever. And I think when people see our
Nah.
breakdown, they'll feel the same way.
Yeah, definitely. The Pac-12, like the middle of that conference is deadly, and that's why they don't get as much respect because they just beat each other up for how many weeks in the middle of the
Yeah,
season.
that's usually their biggest problem is they just beat each other up, and it's just good. It's good football too. The teams are good, but it's not really a good look, when you have no real standouts. But kicking things off here with USC in the South Division, 10-2. I have the Trojans losing to Notre Dame. They haven't won in South Bend since 2011. And then I think at Colorado, at Arizona State, that could get really tricky. I could see them losing a Pac-12 game there because they're really tough to
Yeah,
beat in Los Angeles. You look at this team. Slovis is back. He's incredibly deep offensively. They added a lot of guys this offseason. Keontae Ingram from Texas. They
yep,
get Malapai back at running back. Darwin Barlow from TCU. So they're deep at running back. I'd like to see this running game be more, efficient. They're not going to be very effective because that's not a part of this game plan. But what can USC do to be more efficient in the running game?
I mean, obviously, just improve that offensive line. Just offensive line play for them has been horrible the last couple of years. Just ever since losing Chad Wheeler, Zach Banner, yeah, just have not played well whatsoever. So they got a new O line coach. I think he's pretty has a lot of experience running like an air raid style like offensive line. So hopefully, that can help out a bit, but without that offensive line, that running game's just gonna suffer.
Yeah, they averaged only 97.3 yards per game on the ground, which, that's expected. It's not going to be a high number, but the 3.1 yards per
Yeah,
carry, that's not very good. Week after week, they struggled in short yardage and goal line situations through the entire year.
yeah,
I mean, Joel Klatt's head was about to explode. That's how, like he was so stunned in how poor they were in those short yardage situations.
yeah,
And it really, watching the games really made you think, oh my goodness, these guys are so bad. They're better, off being outside the 25, outside of the red zone. That's their best opportunity
yeah.
to score. Um, I really love this passing attack, though. Slovis was a little inconsistent last year, but he still showcases great accuracy
Oh
in all
yeah,
facets of the field. And he's got a lot of weapons on the outside and the inside. They're insanely deep at wide receiver. Drake London. I love this guy's physicality. I think he's gonna have a big breakout season. He hasn't exactly been quiet during his career, but I think this year you're finally going to see him lead the conference in
yeah,
receiving a lot of receiving
yeah,
categories. Out of all the guys that this receiving core has, they added Taj Washington, Katie Nixon from Memphis and Colorado, respectively. Also got Jake Smith via the portal from Texas. Who is a guy you
yeah.
think is going to step up and be that number two?
Number two, that's just hard. Yeah, I can see Taj Washington. I can see. I was gonna say Brew McCoy, but
He just got arrested,
he's
so
yeah.
so you don't know how
I
that's going to
don't
play
know.
out. Yeah, so
Yeah, he's gonna be out for a bit. He had a lot of potential though. Just I loved his play. He had that nice catch against Arizona State. But yeah, number two, that's something they're gonna have to figure out over fall camp. It was gonna be that 1-2 McCoy London type combo, but now it's just I just feel like it's up to anyone.
I think you're going to see a lot of production. Though. I think you're going to see all these guys have a lot of pretty solid numbers. Kind of like Washington
Yeah.
State. Their tip when Mike Leach was there, they had 5 or 6 guys with 40+ receptions. I think you could probably see that from USC this fall.
No, for sure, for sure.
Michael Jackson, Gary Bryant, the depth that goes on. Michael Jackson, a 3-star recruit, a speedster. I think he's going to really shine in the slot. They're going to get him involved. It's a really deep receiving core, not a problem whatsoever. One of the nation's best. But you flip to this defense. Offense really isn't going to be a problem. They added the number 1 recruit, Corey Foreman. They also got Ishmael Zapsfer via Alabama. Nick
Yep.
Fergaroga, Drake Jackson are back. He's one of the nation's best
Hmm.
edge rushers. What this defense the whole football team really has lacked discipline and toughness. But what is the main category you want to see the Trojans defense improve on this year to see them take that next step?
I think last year, just linebacking, like the linebackers, they needed to improve. And under Todd Orlando, like they kind of started making those steps, but just tackling has been horrible for the secondary for the linebacking core. So I think just strides in those categories, because USC definitely has the talent just in all those aspects. But if you can't tackle, if you're continually, causing penalties, going off sides, pass interference, you're not going to do anything.
Yeah, I believe USC is ranked outside the top 95 in penalties in every year under Clay Helton. It's just something that doesn't seem it's ever going to get fixed. I expect big things out of Kanai Mauga at linebacker. I think USC needs to be better, not exactly better against the run, just more consistent. They weren't great. You saw it against Arizona State, the tackling. Of course, it was just week one, not a lot of off season, so you can say what you want about that game, but they were just running wild. They really couldn't tackle anybody. But that's also been a common theme over Clay Helton's tenure, so it's not something. It's a really talented secondary, though. Isaiah Poamao back, Chris Steele, Greg Johnson, at nickel. USC was pretty solid against the pass last year, outside of the UCLA and Arizona game. They weren't, ultra terrible versus the pass. Where do you think this secondary ranks in the Pac-12? You think it's going to be a dominant force? You think it's going to kind of be middle of the pack?
I think talent-wise, definitely, I would say number 2 after Oregon, but just consistency and just, discipline there's a lot a lot you can want from that aspect. But they, I think, are better than most people think, just because the defensive line, although they've been pretty good, their outside contain has not been great, which just leads to a lot of rollouts, a lot of just scramble drills that just leave the secondary vulnerable. So I think if we shore up that defensive line and the outside contain, you'll just start to see all this talent shine. And if they can keep discipline, you can see this is I would say maybe top 15 secondary in the nation.
Yeah, for sure. You got the 2 edge rushers, though, with Jackson and then Corey Foreman. So, you think that would be shored up this season. You won't be able to, you won't see it until they take the field, but if the defensive line plays better, then the secondary will play better. It's kind of hand in hand, but again, discipline, a big category they need to work on. Moving to number 2 in the South Division, Utah. I have them going 10-2. I absolutely love this football team. It's a new look offense. They added Charlie Brewer and Jaquindon Jackson via the Big 12. Jake Bentley wasn't very good last season. Do you think QB play is ultimately going to decide the Utah football team's fate?
It generally does. They need a quarterback that can just make good decisions, because they do a lot of that option play. You need to make good decisions. You need to make smart throws. You don't need the biggest arm. So that's there's not a lot of arm talent in that quarterback room. So I think, if you just get a guy with good IQ, you're going to have a pretty successful offense, because that run game, if you're making good decisions, it's going to thrive no matter what.
Yeah, I honestly like who they have in Brewer, Jackson, and they also have Drew Lisk. I think it's an interesting three-way battle for the quarterback position. I think Brewer's ultimately going to get the nod. I think he kind of fits the system better. He's been a little inconsistent over his career, but he brings a lot of experience to the table, and that's something really needed. Jake Bentley last year, I think I just mentioned, he just was not good whatsoever last season.
Nope.
And he's never been overly great in his career. He had a 500-yard game against Clemson one year, but other than that, he's never been exceptional. This running game, though, they rest in peace Tim Jordan, the leading rusher last season. Unfortunately, he will not. Unfortunately, he's gone. But these guys added Chris Curry and TJ Pleasure via the transfer portal. How do you see these guys kind of playing out for Utah? You think this is going to be a top-ranked rushing attack in the conference, or you think they're going to kind of struggle a little bit?
I think they might struggle a bit just trying to get, some footing. They also have just one returning back, Bernard. He only had 15 rushes on the year, but he was a freshman and he had some nice carries. So I think just a combination with Curry and Pledger, I think they both played pretty well in the spring game. So I could see them, starting to get chemistry. I can see at the mid to the end mark of the year just starting to put up 200, 250 yards on some teams.
Yeah, they ran, for 194 yards per game last season. Their backs, Devin Brumfield, Jordan Wilmore, they both transferred out, and then they added 2 via transfer. It's kind of weird, they added 2 running backs and 2 quarterbacks in the portal. So, a completely new look offense, but they are surrounded by 2 impressive pass catchers, tight end Brant Kuthi and wide receiver Britton Covey. He's an after the catch freak. I really like these guys. Depth isn't exactly ideal, I guess you could say it, for the receiving core. but I like who they have. Is there any real standout you'd say on this offense we haven't mentioned?
I don't see. They got Tavion Thomas, who transferred from Cincinnati, I believe. Did we talk about him?
No, we didn't mention him. They also,
No.
I believe,
Yeah.
they lost Brian Thompson as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Tavion Thomas. He might be a nice little addition. Then they got a 4-star back, Ricky Parks. I don't think either of those were kind of available in the spring, but they're reporting to camp in fall, so they might kind of bolster that rushing game right there.
Yeah, I think this offense has a very high ceiling. Again, quarterback play is ultimately going to determine how far this offense goes. You look at this defense. I think this is going to be the backbone of the whole football team. I think these guys are loaded
sure.
in the front seven. Mike Tafau.
Yeah.
Mike Tafau, I think he's going to be a breakout edge rusher for the Utes. Devin Lloyd, this guy is insane. One of the nation's top defensive players that nobody talks about for some reason. Not really sure why. Maybe because he plays out west. But he had 48 tackles and 10 tackles for loss in only 5 games. These guys are absolutely loaded. What are your thoughts on this Utah defense?
I honestly think it's going to be about the same as it is every year. They just reload on this defense, and they just get these big guys up front, these really athletic linebackers, and their secondary has been iffy as of late. But I think there was a lot of growing pains. 2019, they lost a lot of production from that 2019 year in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So you saw like that USC game where they were just absolutely torched. I think they're gonna grow up. I think Davis at free safety, he's been kind of coming into his own, and they have that 4-star recruit, Richie. He's pretty good too.
Yeah, I really like what the secondary has. Brandon McKinley, Vontae Davis, Clark Phillips, Jatavius Broughton. They have some really good names. These are names that people watching the Pac-12 are going to learn really quickly. I really like this secondary. They, like you said, it was very inexperienced last year. I kind of use this excuse for every football team, but of course you didn't have a lot of offseason to work with to replace all those guys. But, I mean, it's certainly something you have to talk about when you don't have as many reps as you're accustomed to. Nefi Sewell as well at linebacker. Just this whole defense is really loaded. I think it's going to battle with Oregon for the conference's best defense. But these guys year in, year out, very tough. Kyle Whittingham, I think he's going to be the coach of the year, actually. Just all around a really good football team. And I think they could, no doubt, win the conference. If they play some of their best ball, they're going to be really tough to beat. I'd also like to mention they also added Theo Howard from Oklahoma. He was at Oklahoma, I think UCLA before that. They added him via transfer.
Yeah.
That's a veteran they added via the portal for their offense. Moving to the third-ranked team in the South, Arizona State at 9-3. They rank 11th in FBS in returning production on offense and defense. You only saw this team play 4 games last season. So, I really wish we could have saw him play more, but we didn't. Get back Jaden Daniels. It's already his 3rd year. It sucks that a talent like him only played 4 games because he's likely going to bolt for the NFL after this season. I really like what they have around him, though. Rashad White at running back. He averaged 10 yards per carry. He had 420 yards on 42 carries. But the concern here is he was also the team's leading receiver. He caught 8 passes for 181 yards.
Yeah.
These guys, this wide receiver room is a giant liability. Brian Thompson, I just mentioned, he transfers over from Utah, averaged 20 yards per catch last season, over 25 yards per grab in 2019. You think this wide receiver room is ultimately going to plague this offense, or how do you see it kind of playing out?
Yeah, I think Bunkley, Shelton, and Wilson, both of those guys, blue chip guys that got some time at receiver as true freshmen last year. I think they combined for like 17 catches, but I think with that experience, with that chemistry with Daniels, I think they will be able to kind of grow and mature. So I think those are 2 guys definitely to watch. Also to note, they got that new offensive coordinator from Boise last year, and he wasn't able to really install, that tight end heavy pro style offense that he wanted to before COVID. So I think just a whole spring and a fall, running this offense, I think might be able to pay big dividends. And with these young receivers who didn't have much of a camp before, they're going to be able to shine this year.
Yeah, Zach Hill's offense, they averaged 40 a game last year. They lost the first two games they lost by I think it was a combined 6 points or something like that. And then the next 2 weeks
Yeah.
against bottom feeders in the conference, they exploded. Well, they have like 10 touchdowns against Arizona. It was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, so the sample side really isn't great. You saw them lose those two close games and then beat up on, the conference's worst teams. So I'm not really sure what to expect from this offense. I think it's good things, though. Ricky Purcell, Andre Johnson, I think they're going to step up a receiver. Brian Thompson, as I mentioned, a big play guy. Chip Trainum at running back. I think they have a nice duo, him and White. I think you can see these guys average 35 a game. I think it's possible that Arizona State and Utah will meet each other undefeated. I don't know the exact date on that, but I believe they'll both have 6 or 7 games before they meet each other. Arizona State, they have to go to Utah. The last time they were there, Jaden Daniels played his worst career game. He had like 4 completions on 20 attempts. He had like 19 yards passing, a pick, I believe.
It's a tough defense.
Yeah, I think he had -4 rushing yards as well, if I recall. So they're going to have to get over that hurdle. I mean, that was the worst game Jaden Daniels has probably ever played in his career at any level. Very tough, and it's not going to be any easier, So if they want to win this division, they're going to have to get over Utah. That's not the only hurdle they have, of course, but that's going to be the game I'm really going to be watching for. I think those guys might college game day might be there that weekend, so big time game for sure. Flipping script to the defense, it wasn't exactly great. Of course, they had that bad COVID outbreak, so depth was they just had no depth whatsoever. Square one defensively for the Sun Devils, though, 9 sacks in 4 games. That's going to have to improve. What can Arizona State do to improve its pass rush?
I think just raw talent wise might be able to carry them. They got I think 4 or 5 defensive tackles, all over 300 pounds. They got some ends that are about 265, but they are quick. So I think just better discipline, better skills. I think they'll be able to really cause some havoc, because watching them play last year, it was frustrating. But just watching how fast they were, and they got I think they have a 4-star, redshirt freshman, didn't play last year, and then they also got an LSU transfer, Moore. So I think that's going to be maybe a strong suit if they're able to live up to their potential.
Yeah, Trevez Moore comes over from LSU. They do have the privilege of having one of the nation's top defensive tackles, Jermaine Lowell. His versatility is pretty impressive for being a 6'1", 310-pounder.
Yeah.
He's always been a really good run defender. He grew as a pass rusher last year. I think you're going to see some more consistency on both facets of the game. Lowell, a complete stud. I really like Tyler Johnson as well. He had 7.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks last season. So they have the talent, they have the players. Just need to see more consistency from them. And of course, the terrible COVID outbreak. It's hard to know what was going on within that program, But with everything cleared up, they've probably made this a giant focal point of their offense. They get 3 veterans at linebacker, though. That's the best part of their offense, I'd say.
Yeah.
Merlin Robinson, I think he's a former highly 4-star recruit, so he's a very talented.
He had a great freshman season.
Yeah, he sure did. And Darian Butler and Kyle Shoel as well. So I really like the front 7 that Arizona State has. I think they're going to be much better than they were last season. But all around it, it's going to. The defense has to play really good, though, because the offense can't just carry them all the way with who's in the division. Yeah. What do you like about the secondary, though? They get Evan Fields, the leading tackler, back. He was second in tackles in 2019 as well, so he's a stud. Jack Jones, inconsistency has been a big problem for him. He really resurrected his career when he transferred over from USC after whatever. I can't recall what happened there. How do you feel about Jack Jones and Chase Lucas? Where's this corner duo rank in the Pac-12?
That's talent wise, again, great. Jack Jones, great talent. That dude from Cal Poly, just he can move. He's quick and he's able to cover, but it's just that consistency, like you were saying, just not there. Lucas on the other side, I feel like he's a little bit more consistent. He's kind of there. He's gonna stick to his guy. I think just they will be a top duo in the South. I don't know if they will be disciplined enough or consistent, which that's kind of Herm Edwards' thing. He can kind of whip them into shape. So hopefully they can get more consistent. I think just this entire secondary is just really a lot of experience coming back, and a lot of their last year. So I think the secondary will either, they got that high ceiling, they got a high floor too. So, kind of excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, I agree. I really like what they have in the back end. All three facets of the defense, really, I like what they have. But I want to see if they can put it all together. Jack Jones, he had 3 picks, 13 pass breakups in 2019. Only played 2 games last season. But again, consistency was a big problem. But for being 5'9", 170, I like his ball skills. I think
Yeah.
really impressive. Is there anything else you'd like to add about Arizona State before we move to UCLA?
No, they have solid linebackers. That's about it.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and move to UCLA at 7-5. They get back 95% of production on offense, so they're going to be very experienced. They do lose Demetric Felton, that's pretty much it. They also get back 88% on defense. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he played considerably well last year. UCLA averaged 35 points per game. They added power running back Zach Charbonnet from Michigan. He's going to share the backfield with Bretton Brown. Brown had 542 yards on 82 carries, a very reliable number 2. What are you looking to see from UCLA this year? Chip Kelly says it's going to be a big year for him. He gets a lot back. I'd say this is win now mode for UCLA. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it has to be. You have Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR. This is probably the best talent that UCLA has had in a really long time. You can say Josh Rosen, dude had an amazing arm, but his his cast wasn't as good as Robinson has now. So I think if you don't win now, I don't want to say hot seat for Kelly, but I can kind of see that. And this team's gonna go as far as DTR is gonna take them. And if he has a great year, I can see him having like an offensive player of the year. That's my kind of sleeper pick for OPOY. But yeah, they can have a great year, or if he gets hurt or something happens, you can see them at the bottom of the division and Kelly gone.
Yeah, that'd be worst case scenario for them. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. I'd say they've gotten considerably better during his short tenure. And like you said, it's a very good supporting cast. Greg Dulcich at tight end. He's probably one of the nation's best at that position. Chase Cota, Kyle Phillips. I believe he's been the leading receiver each of the past 2 seasons. So I like what they have offensively. They also added Cam Brown as well, so they have some depth at receiver. The defense, though, they really struggled. They get back leading tackler Caleb Johnson at linebacker. I expect big things from edge rusher Mitchell Agudi. But the secondary, it's a big concern. They ranked 114th in pass defense. They do have 4 seniors coming back, including Stephen Blaylock. Do you see a big jump from UCLA's secondary? You think they're just going to, once again be towards the bottom of the nation?
Yeah, I think I don't see them being that great this year. Yeah, like you say, Blaylock, he was a 4-star from 2018, and he's been playing since then as a true freshman, but just hasn't been great. He's supposed to kind of be that leader of that secondary. Hasn't been great, and just there's not a lot of other names that are really popping out to me. They have a couple corners from the 2020 class. Like Gates, Ebo, Williams, but those guys are looking like backups right now, and you can't really rely on such young talent if you're in that win now mode.
Yeah, and I also think a 4-star athlete, Devin Kirkwood, he's making the transition to the corner as well. So they got some young guys, but altogether they need to play much better. They gave up 344 yards and then 428 the next week to end the year. So they obviously didn't end it on a high note whatsoever. They also gave up 100-plus rushing in each of the final 4 games. So the defense obviously needs to improve, 5.4 yards per play. It's not ideal. It's much better than the 6.7 they allowed in 2019. So the defense is making the right steps. But I think with all the stuff they get back, they should be allowing less than 25 points per game next season. And if they don't, well, I'm not really sure because the defense, they have talent. They have some good players. But if they can't make big strides, then I'm not really sure what the answer is going to be. So UCLA at 7-5, that's the pick. Moving to Colorado at 5-7, I really like this Colorado team. I think they can make some noise. I have them at 5-7. But they really have some ballers on both sides of the ball. Running back Jarrett Broussard, he ran for 895 in 6 games. So that's nearly 150 yards per game. Brendan Lewis at quarterback, I really like this kid. He completed a modest 6 for 10 for 95 yards. He ran 7 times for 73 yards and a touchdown in the Alamo Bowl against Texas. That's the only time he played all year. He clearly has some good raw talent. He has a high ceiling. He's conservative with his legs and the sense that he processes the awareness to look downfield while improvising. I really like this kid. What are your kind of thoughts on Brendan Lewis? Other than he needs to work on his mechanics, do you think his ceiling's incredibly high?
Yeah, I think he can do well. But I think this offense definitely is going to run through Broussard. Just definitely take off all that pressure off the quarterback, and especially with the loss to Neuer, who I think he was good for what kind of what they're trying to do. Lewis definitely has higher potential, but I think when you're looking at like just trying to control the game, trying to just get the ball out, be safe with it, Neuer was great. Think Lewis has that potential, but I don't think they're going to put a lot of pressure on him right now to kind of get it done.
Yeah, and he's got a nice trio of pass catchers though. Katie Nixon, of course, transfers to SC, but he's got Dimitri Stanley, who led the team in receiving last year. Levante Chenault, he has good talent. His brother plays for the Jaguars. You saw what he was able to do when he was with the
Oh
Buffaloes.
yeah.
You also have Jerry Rice's son, Brendan. He caught 6 passes. It was kind of weird. He didn't play a lot, but when he did, he made an impact. He caught 6 balls for 120 and 2 scores. Versus Utah, he took his only catch, 61 yards to the house, and then he took his only punt return, 81 yards for a score. So the kid can obviously play more than just the last name. What do you think the ceiling kind of is for this offense? Do you think they could be top 3 in the conference in scoring, or do you think they still have a lot of work to do?
I don't see them being a top tier, kind of offense in the conference. They rely a lot kind of on the tight ends they're great blockers, but they're not great athletically with their hands. They got that new tight end, the 3-star Faria, the Christian Faria's son from, yeah. He might be he might be something to look out for. They have 4 of their starting offensive linemen returning, which that's always great. Especially a lot of rotations at center last year, and just a lot of crazy years at offensive line. But yeah, the tackles aren't great, and I don't think they have kind of enough talent and experience to kind of bring this offense to the top of the Pac-12 South, might as well the Pac-12 in general.
Yeah, we're talking about the offensive line. They added Max Ray from at right tackle from Ohio State, so they're adding some good talent. I mentioned Brendan Lewis, but they also added JT Shrout via transfer as well. He's in a battle for quarterback. So I really like this offense. I think they have a pretty high ceiling. I don't know, maybe I'm just looking at it on paper going, maybe these guys can really do some damage. But like you said, the tight ends are going to have to be better. And then Lewis, it's just a very small sample size. You don't know what you're going to get from him on a week-to-week basis. So 5-7, I think they can potentially upset USC. When they host them. Yes, you don't want to. I don't think you want to play this team though, even at a 5-7 prediction. I don't think it's like a Friday night or something in Boulder. It's not going to be a great matchup. So the defense, they have some work to do though. They'll have over 420 yards in nearly 32 points per game. But again, they have some ballers. Nate Landman, he's a great player, phenomenal versus the run. 53 tackles, 9 tackles for loss in 5 games. Altogether, I think this is probably one of the nation's more underrated linebacker cores. They added Robert Barnes. He was a former top 100 recruit from Oklahoma. And they also have Carson Wells, an outside linebacker. He had 16 tackles for loss in 6 games. That's pretty unreal. That's pretty unheard of. They lost Mustafa Johnson, a defensive tackle, so they obviously have some work outside of linebacker. How do you kind of feel about this defense?
I think Landman's probably one of the best inside backers in the conference. He is coming back from that Achilles tendon injury, so he'll get back. I think in the fall. He did not play at all in the spring, but I think there's a lot of question marks. Not a ton of experience. They got a couple transfers from Oklahoma, Barnes from Oklahoma, and then I think Jack Lamb from Notre Dame, if that's right. But yeah, they lost Rakestraw, the safety, but they have a couple experienced backups in that secondary. So I think this is kind of I'm thinking it's going to be a solid defensive core. Carl Durrell, he's going to get them in shape. I think Yeah, I think they can potentially be great, just with all these question marks, but there's some experience. But it could also go the other way. They also have that cornerback, Bethel from Miami, and yeah, I
Makai,
think he might be able to do something.
yeah, and Makai Blackman's well. He's one of the most underrated players in the whole conference. He had a big time season last year. Very good in press coverage. Safety Isaiah Lewis, another guy I really like, a versatile weapon. He should have a big giant season. But again, back to the defensive front. The defensive line was not good at all last season. They combined for 3.5 of the team's 15 sacks, so they need to be better. All the production came from the linebackers that were not good up front whatsoever. Need to get to the quarterback. Need to get better penetration in the run. High ceiling defense, but if your defensive line is just getting grinded down on, it's going to be kind of hard to shine in other facets of the game. So Colorado 5-7, but I really like this team. I think Carl Durrell has a lot of talent to work with. I'm gonna be very interested in watching them play on a weekly basis. Moving
Oh,
to
for sure, for sure.
moving to the last team in the division, I don't really have much to say about Arizona 2-10. I like what they have a receiver though. Stanley Berryhill, Jameer Joyner, they're both back. It's gonna be a three-way battle at quarterback. Jordan McLeod, he comes over from USF. He's in a battle with what's his name, Will Plummer, and
Yeah.
Zona doesn't feature much promise for the season. I think they made the right hire in Jed Fish, so I like the culture shift they're about to experience. But altogether, Arizona's defense was very poor, as was their offense. Of course, they had that game against USC where they looked really good, but their quarterback Grant Gunnell, he transfers, so not a lot of promise. How do you kind of feel about Arizona? Are you feeling the same way?
It's just I don't know what to say. They have Plummer, Rodriguez, Cruz, the guy from Washington State. Kind of in that battle. But watching all of them, I think through all the tape, I think Cruz might actually have the best chance. He has a pretty great arm, but just everything else, it's not looking good. They got that Anderson, the transfer from Northwestern. Had 228 career rushes. He's gonna be a solid option. Also, Wiley, he's been on the team for a couple years. Yeah, it's not a ton of depth, not a ton of talent either. So I don't really see a great ceiling for this team.
Yeah, their defense in 5 games had 2 sacks. They had 2 interceptions, all from one player, and they gave up nearly 40 a game. So they lacked playmaking. They
Jeez.
lacked everything, really. I don't really know what to say about this defense. It's going to be a massive work in progress for Jed Fish.
Oh, yeah.
Moving to the north, you have Oregon here at 11-1. This is a really good football team. Their passing attack wasn't very effective with Tyler Shaw under center. He's going to Texas Tech. Anthony Brown, he showed much better command of the offense against Iowa State, and he didn't play much against USC, but he had a couple scores. So I really like what they have at wide receiver, one of the nation's best receiving corps, much like the Trojans. Devon Williams, he actually played for USC. He was a big-time impact performer for the Ducks last fall. Led them in receiving with 286 on 15 receptions or 2 touchdowns. Jalen Red, he's been a consistent contributor over his career. Over 1,200 yards, 118 grabs, 14 scores. He has a knack for finding the end zone. And the last guy I'll mention here for a second is Johnny Johnson. He took a bit of a back seat in 2020 in terms of production. The lack of consistency at quarterback. He kind of made people forget how good he was. He was Justin Herbert's top pass catcher 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
He averaged almost 15 yards a grab. He was big time down the stretch. How do you feel about this passing attack? I really like what they have here. Are you on par with that?
I am just a lot of talent. Like Micah Pittman, speedster. They have Patrick Herbert, Justin's brother. I've heard he's good run blocker, but he has some nice hands. I think Joe Moorhead. I think he smart guy. That whole Penn State thing, 2016, really one of the pioneers of that. And Anthony Brown, solid quarterback from Boston College, but they also got that freshman QB Ty Thompson. I think he might have to redshirt this year, but if he shows like he's good enough in the fall, Mario Cristobal really likes him. I think he was on quote saying he's the best freshman quarterback from this class. Dogged everyone in the Elite 11. He's just a straight up alpha male. So I think if he's able to perform in fall, you could see a Ty Thompson run Oregon offense. And they also got that new running back, Seven McGee. getting a lot of DeAnthony Thomas comparisons. They're probably going to use him in that kind of role. So I think just this offense is just looking good.
Yeah, Ty Thompson spoke to him a couple months ago. Outstanding young man. He loves it there. He has high expectations for himself and for the entire football team. So whenever he takes over, I think they're going to be in good hands. But I do think Brown's going to be very consistent this season. You're just back to receiver. It doesn't stop there. They have Chris Hudson, Dante Thornton, Troy Franklin as well. These guys were all top 60 recruits, former 4 stars. I love what they have at receiver. And the whole supporting cast really as a whole. They get, C.J. Verdell and Travis Dye back. Verdell didn't play a lot last season, but we know about his explosiveness. Dye, his versatility as a receiver as well. They do lose Penny Sewell, but I like this offensive line. Remember they replaced, what was it? I think they replaced 4 starters after they won the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of experience now. George Moore at left tackle is a guy a lot of people like. Alex Forsyth at center. And they have another outstanding right tackle in Lev Louie. I just think this entire offense is really going to be one of the nation's more underrated one. I think people are not really talking about this offense enough. And I think that's going to be a mistake. I think they're going to be really good. And, they get Ohio State week 2. I think they lose that game, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any measure. They have the offense. They also have this wonderful defense. We'll flip the script to them. Incredibly dominant off the edges, Kayvon Thibodeau. You just go watch the Pac-12 title game where he won the player of the game. Insane length, great size. Guy, he's just a complete game wrecker. I mean, what can you say? It's a young linebacking core of Justin Flo, Noah Sewell, Keith Brown. They just added as well. Do you think the inexperience here is going to plague them, or do you think this talent is eventually going to take over and these guys are going to be extremely tough in the front seven?
Front seven's going to be crazy. I think, running that 3-4 defense. You got Thibodeau. Like, I have on my notes linebacker, just him. He's just such a difference maker. They did lose Isaac Slade. That's you lose some depth. Noah Sewell, Justin Flo, like you said, just great players. Flo coming back from injury. This front seven is going to be gnarly. And I think, talking about that Ohio State game, this front seven is probably going to be the thing, kind of keeping them in that game. Just with all that inexperience, Oregon usually starts off slow. So I think this front seven with all their experience is really going to play well, and it's going to be a beast.
Yeah, Mace Una, another guy we didn't mention off the edge. I really like him as well. I think that's pretty solid depth. They've done a great job recruiting here at Oregon. I think they've got a lot of talent all around. Great.
6th in the country.
Yeah, I mean, Mario Cristobal's done a phenomenal job. Look at the secondary, like you said earlier. You think it's the most talented in the conference. Michael Wright was outstanding in the Jamal Hill was outstanding in the slot, but Michael Wright, he's great on the outside. Verone McKinley, a very versatile safety. Out of those 3 names, who really stands out to you the most in this secondary?
Obviously, Mikhail Wright. I think he's the second best corner, following the guy out of Washington. What's his name? Trent McDuffie.
Yeah.
Just really talented. I think just watching tape, you can just tell just great ball skills. He doesn't get beat, and DJ James. I think that's going to be a name to kind of look out for, filling in with I don't want to mess up this name. Diamador Lenore. He got drafted. Yeah. He got drafted. So I think the secondary, again, super, super talented. I think the safety group might not be the best. I think they have Verone McKinley coming in.
Yeah.
You just got to see what they got to do.
Yeah, McKinley, he played more of a versatile role last year. So, there's some growing pains in that area, but he's still reliable in deep coverage. Michael Wright, like we mentioned, one of the best press corners in college football. I love this team. Love this all-around defense. Offense as well. Moving to Washington, 9-3 here. I really think this offense is another underrated unit. They only played in 4 games, but we did see a good glimpse of the future in Seattle and Dylan Morris at quarterback. He threw all 3 of his interceptions on the year in a single game against Utah. In a game where Washington later staged a second-half comeback, a lot of it was on the arm of his. He made a lot of great plays down the stretch. I think this kid's really impressive. Great arm, nice passes downfield, in intermediate to deep range. He averaged 224 yards per game last year. He's still very young, very bright as well. He'll have some pressure with Sam Heward breathing down his neck. I think he was the 11th ranked recruit in this class.
Yeah.
They return every starter on offense. What is your kind of expectations for this passing attack specifically?
Passing attack. I think Dylan Morris, yeah, great guy. What's his name? Brock Hart or Sam Hart, the 5-star. I actually thought he was gonna end up taking the job. I think I had him on my freshman of the year, but then I watched his spring game and it was horrible. He's not starting this year. He might come in midway through, but wide receiver wise,
It's not great.
it's
Yeah.
not great. They lost a lot, like Puka Nacua. They got Giles Jackson from Michigan, Jalen Polk from Texas Tech. They got Terrell Bynum, but I think the main thing is wide receiver. Like the wide receiver group is not a big part of what I feel like they're trying to do. I think you're gonna need your tight ends, you're gonna need your O line, you're gonna need your running backs, and kind of like 2016, you had you had Pettis, you had what's his name,
Ross.
super fast guy, yeah, Ross, yeah, those guys were great, but outside of them, you just had players that did their role. So I think passing attack is gonna be what it is. Jimmy Lake's kind of keeping that Chris Peterson mentality where, you're just going to move the ball any way you can. You're not going to be super flashy. You're going to use the run game a lot. It's going to hurt, not having Myles Gaskin because he was drafted a couple years back. But yeah, I think, passing attack's going to do what it needs to be done,
Yeah, I kind of like the trio of running backs they have, though. Kamari Pleasant, Sean McGrew, Richard Newton, nice rotation of guys. Ran for 176 yards per game, which was actually the same amount as they did in 2019. So that's kind of, strange. That number should go up this fall, though. They have one of the nation's best and biggest offensive lines. They only allowed one sack last year, and they also led the nation in fewest tackles for loss allowed. Granted, they played in 4 games, but still only giving up those few numbers is very impressive. Left tackle Jackson Kirkland, he's one of the best in college football at his position.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were talking about with the receiving group, Terrell Bynum, he had 8 receptions last year. That was the most by any pure wide receiver.
Yeah.
If they didn't have tight end K. Otten, I'd be seriously concerned. Otten was elite last year as a blocker and a pass catcher. He's the only guy to record double figures. He caught 18 balls for 258 and 3 scores. He was on pace for elite production. I really like what they have in Otten, but all around, they're going to need those guys, a receiver, to step up. So I don't really know what the expectation is for the passing game. I think 250 yards per game or less from Morris. That's where I'm going to set the expectation at.
Yeah.
All around the offensive line is going to be the backbone of this football team. So I think they can get. I think they can accomplish a lot with those big guys up front. Massive. I think everyone on there. I think 4 out of 5 starters are 6'5" or taller. So, and then of course they're like 330 pounds each. So these guys are massive. Moving to the defense though, Eduan Ulufashio. This guy at linebacker. He's elite. He's one of the nation's best at his position. Great recognition. His power on film really stood out. He can barrel through as an interior rusher. He's also got great athletic ability. He can play in space. They also get back outside linebacker Ryan Bowman. I'd like to see more consistency from Bowman. He's been elite at times, and he's been moderate at the other. Zion Tupulopu-Fitu, he's going to be out all of 2021 with a torn Achilles. That's a big loss off the edge. He had 7 sacks in 4 games. Incredibly dynamic. What's your view on this front 7? Do you think Bowman and Ulufashio are going to carry them, or do you think they're kind of struggle without proven guys at nose tackle?
Yeah, I think linebacker wise, not a ton of depth. We got Ulufashio and Bowman. Yeah, great players. I think they are definitely not the greatest. They lost Latu to medical retirement, but they got some big boys on that defensive line. A couple of guys over 300 pounds, just big space eaters. Really perfect for that 2-4-5 they're really trying to run. But I think just kind of watching this team, it's really evident that seniority kind of rules at Washington. I think you have a couple young guys that aren't really getting shots, a couple 4-stars that really aren't getting in playing time because you see a lot of super seniors starting with some, athletic limitations. So I think, yeah, it's going to be the front seven's going to be solid, like it always is. You have Jimmy Lake, kind of like that defensive guy as your head coach, but it could be better. I don't expect it to be 2016 levels. I don't expect it to be anything special, to be honest.
Yeah, a lot of veterans, as you said, a lot of veterans on this team. Everybody in the starting lineup is a junior or older, other than Savell Smalls, who's a 5-star recruit outside linebacker.
Yeah.
He's going to see the field when you're a recruit that high. When you go to a school like Washington, you're certainly going to see the field.
Oh, for sure.
Moving to this secondary, these guys, I think PFF called them probably one of the most talented in all of college football. Trent McDuffie at corner, like we said. Added Bradley Hiles from Oklahoma. He's incredible in the slot. They also have a guy in Kyler Gordon who's an athletic freak. Would you say that's a good, notion to say that this secondary is one of the nation's best? Because I really like what they have.
Yeah, I think it is. I think the only question mark is just safety. What they have Julius Ervin, Dominic Hampton, going up for that spot. But yeah, Kyler Gordon, Trent McDuffie, Brendan Radley Hiles, just great all around athletes, especially Radley Hiles, who's a huge recruit back in the day. I remember all those Instagram posts, just, blasting this guy. I think he's kind of a perfect fit, super hyper aggressive. That's kind of the reasons why he didn't get as much playing time at Oklahoma, but I think that'll kind of fit in to this stacked secondary for Washington. Just his hyper aggressiveness is going to, mix well. So I think especially with Jimmy Lake, kind of that defensive back specialist, use some of his magic, and this secondary is going to be something special.
Yeah, I'd just like to say McDuffie, great outside corner. He's also a great run stopper too, great tackler.
Oh, yeah.
So he's all around a very talented defense. I really like what they have. I think this team, kind of like Utah, can kind of like shock a lot of people because neither team last year was exactly great. You only played a few games, so a small sample size. But I think this year they have a lot in place that can really help some team. I think they can really make some noise this year. And if one of the favorites in Oregon or USC doesn't win the conference, I wouldn't be shocked if it's one of those two teams.
Yeah, I think the main thing for Washington is their talent isn't top tier, but they're going to go. Yeah, their coaching just really carries them. So I think you're going to see them beat up a lot of teams, and then I think they might lose to the more talented teams like Oregon, but they're going to make those a dogfight.
Yeah, most certainly not a team you want to play whatsoever. Moving to the third team in the division, you have Stanford at 7-5, and this is kind of shocking to me because these guys have just struggled immensely over the last couple of years. They've just kind of fallen off a cliff, especially the running game. They've rushed for 130 yards or less in each of the past 3 seasons. Austin Jones, though, he's been solid at running back, 550, 9 scores, had 4.4 yards per carry last year. The running game, that's Stanford's bread and butter typically, tough offensive line, big guys up front, pushing everyone around. Hasn't been the case the last couple of years. So, that's going to be kind of a storyline to watch. I don't expect them to really grow too much in that facet of the game. But they have 2 quarterbacks in Jack West, Tanner McKee. They're going to battle it out. I think these guys are going to end up carrying the offense.
Yeah, I think let me preface, this kind of 7-5 ranking. Looking at the team, doesn't look great, but you have oh shoot, why am I blanking on his name? The coach. What's the head coach's name
David
again?
Shaw, yeah.
Yeah, David Shaw. I don't know why I was blanking. That was dumb. But David Shaw, great coach. I really just love, ever since, picking up for Harbaugh, he's just been able to reload this team. They were 50th ranked class recruiting wise, and QB's kind of a miss, but I think they're going to start moving back to this power running attack. You can see Austin Jones. I honestly think he's a top running back in the Pac-12. Nathaniel Pete, whatever his name is. They also have EJ Smith, Emmitt Smith's son. Really, diverse guy. And you can also see in the wide receiving core, they lose St. Brown, they lose Weddington. But those guys, honestly, did not really fit, that regular Stanford, get you a 6'5" type wide receiver. I think they lost Fehoko, which is bad, but they have some wide receivers coming up that they're looking like, they're going back to that, big guy type thing. Bryson, Tremaine, Elijah Higgins, John Humphreys. And then you have, one of those slot guys in Michael Wilson that can really make a difference.
Yeah, big fan of Michael Wilson, Elijah Higgins. I expect a big season from him. So, receiver, they have some guys. I think this is going to be a really good passing attack last year. I think they averaged over 300 a game last year. So, I really hope what they have. Jack West, he got the start actually in the season opener against
Yeah.
Oregon. Went 13 of 19, 154, and then he didn't see the
Yeah.
field the rest of the year. I believe he got injured. McKee, he's younger in terms of experience, but he possesses better raw talent. It doesn't really matter who gets the nod for Stanford. I don't think there's much concern in this quarterback room whatsoever. It's the best spot of their football team, I think. The offensive line, though, Walter Rouse, I think he's going to blossom in year 3. He really shined last year after big struggles in year 1. Miles Hinton as well, 6'7", 330. He's very physical. So I don't know how dominant they're going to be on the offensive line, but they do have some dudes I think are really going to impress, and I think they're going to try to get back to that bread and butter of their football team. Moving to their defense, they had no pass rush at all last season. In the corner, they don't have much proven talent or depth. This defense, Stanford, they typically play, I guess, like Utah, I guess you could say, very tough physical defense in all areas of the game. It hasn't really been the case. I don't think it's going to be the case this year. Thomas Booker, he had a bit of a down year last year. I think he's going to be a big bounce back for him. He's a great run stopper, but upside's limited as a pass rusher. And again, that's one of its biggest categories for concerns. So do you think this defense can allow them to win 7 games, or do you think David Charles is really going to work some magic here?
I think this defense is kind of the make or break. That 7-5 was kind of what they can be. I think their defensive line. You have Ryan Johnson, defensive end. Then when you're looking at their tackles, Dalen Wade Perry's the only defensive tackle they have. Like, they have a walk-on as a backup. Their linebackers, I think that's kind of the bright spot of the team. You have Gabe Reed, you have Stephen Herron. Those guys are going to be guys that are going to make those tackles, are going to make those stops. They have a pretty good inside linebacker, Levani Damanu. Ricky Miezin looks like he's going to get that other spot, but those guys are solid guys. Kind of reminiscing back to Stanford of old, those real linebackers that really put the boom on you. Their defensive, their DBs, they lose 2 safeties, but they have McGill, Noah Williams, Kendall Williamson all coming back. Nothing really special on tape, but I think it was actually a blessing in disguise. They lost Debo after opting out in 2020, because then you get guys like Hugh Blue Kelly and Salim Turner Muhammad who now have that experience. And I think they were a solid group, but it was just hard to kind of evaluate them because the pass rush was horrible.
Yeah, corner Kai Blue Kelly, and a lot of people are really high on him, so that's a guy who can really step up. 9 sacks in 6 games. And Thomas Schaefer, he's gone. He was their top sacker last year from the defensive line. So, they just for some reason I keep talking about all these teams who just don't have any pass rush. That's a common theme I've noticed that last year a lot of teams really just struggled to get to the quarterback, not just in the Pac-12, all over the place. So that's going to be an area of concern. Like you said, the depth isn't great though. So I think David Shaw can certainly work some magic. That's never something you don't expect. So.
Yeah, and they're much better than the rest of the teams on this list: California, Oregon State, and Washington State. I'll tell you that.
Stanford, their win-loss total, I think, and the casinos have it at 4 over/under. So.
Oh, geez, I'd take that over.
Yeah. So, Cal, we move to them 5-7. They get 75% of their production back on offense. Quarterback Chase Garbers. He started off the 2019 season quite well. I think they were 4-0. They scored 28 a game, I think, or something like that. Yeah, they had 20-plus in each of those games. He missed the next 5, and the offense struggled immensely. Following his return, he threw for 200-plus in 3 straight to end the year. All wins for Cal, so he can win. They win with Garbers at quarterback. He wasn't great last year. He struggled with first-year offensive coordinator Bill Musgrave. They were unable to click at all. He threw for 200 yards only once. Cal was 1-3. They don't really have much of a running game either. 101st in rushing at 126 yards per game. Even in 2019, when they had a pretty good season, Chris Brown was really nice. They still only had 131 games. So this offense doesn't really have much of a ceiling. So who are kind of the standouts on this offense? Do you think they're going to click in year 2 under Bill Musgrave, or is it just going to be the typical Golden Bear offense?
I think, if anything, the running back core, that's going to be kind of the strong suit for Cal, they lost Bradrick Shaw, but they got fifth year Chris Brown, Damian Moore, and Marcel Dancy. Damian Moore's kind of a guy to kind of look out for. He kind of broke out last year, very well balanced back. They also have a 3-star Street. He's a very good change of pace back. Yeah, I think the running back. That's kind of how they're gonna go. They're gonna have to run it because they have Garber's, clear cut first quarterback. But their backups, Spencer Brash, Jaden Casey, Devon Modster, all transferred out. So if Garbers gets hurt, like he's been prone to, I think they only have a 4-star Kai Milner, kind of back there, but he didn't even show up until the fall. So not a lot of experience passing. So the running back's going to have to be the strong suit.
Yeah, I'd just like to say Devon Modster, very underwhelming at UCLA and at Cal. So
yeah,
they do have
terrible.
a great, they do have a great receiver, Keoka Crawford, very physical, crisp route runner. This guy is a great pass catcher. I think of just a little bit improved QB play. He could have a big season. I think you could see Now, I'm not going to compare him to Zay Jones, but for example, ECU, they just threw it to one guy all year long. That year he had 150 grabs. I think you could see something like that from Keoka Crawford. I think you could see him at least have 7 receptions a game because it's a thin receiver room, and this guy's really talented. I think he's going to rack up the production this year. Not a very high ceiling though for the offense. Like you said, they got some nice running backs. Brown, nice powerful winner, and they got some change of pace backs. So maybe they can rank better than 101st in rushing. I don't know. I've yet to see it under Justin Wilcox, but I do like Bill Musgrave. I think he's a good coach. So upside
to look out for. They got some wide receivers. 2 4-stars they signed: Marvin Anderson, J. Michael Sturdivant. Those are guys that kind of can create space. So maybe look out for them. If Garbers gets a nice connection, they might have some deep threats on the way.
That would be good because I really liked what I saw from him in 2019. When he was healthy, they were just winning left and right. So this defense, Justin Wilcox, ever since he got here, has turned it around immensely. They rank 11th in FBS with 87% returning production back. That's really not good for the rest of the Pac-12. Love what they have at linebacker, Keon Dang and Cameron Good. Good, he's phenomenal off the edge. 8 tackles for loss, 3 sacks in 4 games. He had 14 tackles for loss for comparison in 2019. This guy's a premier playmaker off the edge. Dang, he's a high-volume tackler. He had 119 tackles in 2019, which was actually second on the team. Evan Weaver had 185 that year. Pretty crazy stuff. He had 31 in 4 games last year. I really like what they have in Dang. The front seven, though, it's not. I don't really have too many good things to say about their defensive front. So I think this linebacker room's kind of have to carry them. Would you disagree with that, or how do you kind of see this front seven with Cal?
Definitely linebackers are going to have to carry. I think it'll really help with the defense kind of moving to a 3-4. That's what I'm thinking. They had a really good defensive lineman, Brett Johnson, but he got in a car crash, missed the rest of the season. Besides him, not a ton of experience. They have 2 new starters at tackle, Ricky Correa, Stanley McKenzie. I think linebackers going to have to carry. Cameron Good has been, very good. They also have, Keonu Dang. They had him at inside, but, now that Good's back, they're both going outside. So I think he's back in his natural position. They're going to do great. Inside linebackers, Mo Iosefa, Evan Tattersall, really solid options. So I think their front seven, it'll kind of be make or break. I don't know how to make that, past tense, but it's going to be, it's all going to be on that linebacking core.
Yeah, because Good and Dang had 3.5 of the team's 7 sacks in 4 games. So, I mean, they weren't really great. I mean, only 4 games, so almost 2 a game. But they also, the defensive line they also got graded down on. They gave up 170 rushing yards per game, so they weren't great. I think the secondary a few years ago, I thought it was one of the nation's best. And I think it's kind of underrated this year as well. Elijah Hicks and Daniel Scott, very underrated safety duo.
Yeah.
It's a big reason why Cal ranked 23rd in FBS in passing yards per game allowed last season. That's no fluke. And Josh Dryden, he's a guy who many consider to be the best slot corner in the conference. A name a lot of people, I don't think anyone's actually mentioned at all this offseason. I like what they have in the secondary. I hate to keep asking if you agree with me, but how do you feel about this secondary? Because I think it's really good. Is that too far to stretch, or do you agree?
I think it's going to be a pretty good squad. You know, they lose Cam Bynum, which is big, but
Mm-hmm.
they return everyone else. Josh Drayden, great. Chigozie, Anusium, pretty good. Elijah Hicks, finally, firmly in that safety spot after converting from corner. Daniel Scott, great option. They also got a transfer from Florida State, Raymond Woody. They also have a freshman, Hunter Barth, came in, had a really good spring, has a real possibility to, make himself in that mix. So I think, you're not wrong that this Cal, secondary can be something special.
Yeah, and this team, it wasn't nothing to beat. They weren't a beat about around the Bush team last year. They got blown out by UCLA in the season opener, but over the next 2 weeks they lost by a combined 4 points, and then they beat Oregon the end of the year. That was their only win.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So, and the defense they gave up 5.6 per play, but they weren't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. I think they need to be better in the trenches, though. But they have the secondary, they have the linebackers. I think if they can really improve heavily in the trenches, and this defense can be really, really tough to contain this season. So,
yeah.
Cal ending up in a bowl game, neither do you, but they certainly could. I think this team has some solid upside for Justin Wilcox.
Yeah, I think definitely. Think Cal and I feel like Oregon State actually could have better seasons than I'm kind of saying, but that's kind of where they are right now. But they definitely have potential.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and move to the next team, Washington State. Jaden DeLora, I love this kid. He really fits Nick Rolovic's system. He's a phenomenal athlete. He comes from St. Louis High School in Hawaii. You've heard of them before. DeLora, he only had a few offers come out of high school, though, and Ohio State was one of them, showing that, if Ryan Day noticed the talent the kid possesses, then the kid's good. So he played only 4 games a season ago, 886, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks, but he has great fluid feet, shows he's comfortable in the pocket, has the arm to make most throws that are asked of him. I love Jaden DeLora. He's back from suspension following a DUI. It's going to be a name a lot of people are going to recognize this fall. But the problem is, the worst possible thing that could happen to this football team is if Jared Guarantano starts. He transfers from Tennessee. I like the team's potential on offense, but if Guarantano starts, their ceiling is very low.
Oh, very. I think I was reading some stuff on Twitter. It was like DeLora, he's serving a suspension. And then Garantano, he started in the spring, and I think was it him? I'm pretty sure it was Garantano. Like he had his first pass in the spring, he hurt his hand or something. He threw a pick. So I think that kind of shows you what kind of player he is. I think, obviously DOI is not great, but it's not the worst thing. So definitely keep DeLora. If Garantano starts, kind of like you're saying, the season might be lost.
Yeah, it happened early in the offseason, so hopefully he's been battled back from everything. The supporting cast, I really like what these guys have. Max Borg, he's a forgotten player because he played 1 game last year, but he's the nation's top receiving back. Deuce Vaughn probably gives him a run for his money, but 86 receptions in 2019. He also ran for 11 scores and 6.4 yards per carry, 800-plus yards on the year. And that was with Mike Leach as head coach, and they don't run the ball whatsoever for him to have those numbers. No. I thought that was just highly impressive.
Oh, yeah.
And then, they still got some good receivers left from the Leach era. Tarvell Harris, Renard Bell. This duo combined for 62 of the team's 94 receptions last year. Jameer Calvin had another 17 of those, but he transfers to Mississippi State to reunite with his old coach. So outside of those 3, no one else on the roster had more than 5 grabs. So they only have really 2 guys, and then just a bunch of inexperienced and no production. So do you think that's going to limit the ceiling for this offense, or do you think they'll just be just fine?
I think they'll be fine. One name definitely look out for, CJ Moore, transfer from Oklahoma State. I think they're going to use him heavily in the offense. When he was coming out of high school, I think he was 10th ranked wide receiver coming out of high school. So I think this wide receiver core has some depth. They did lose a lot of wide receivers when they made that switch from the air raid, but not a ton of experience, but I think you're going to see some talent, with Bell, Harris, CJ Moore. I think those guys are really going to kind of show, some talent, some skill. I think if DeLora is able to kind of, keep that momentum from his first season, I think this offense might, run somewhat smoothly.
Yeah,
the end of last year wasn't great, so
yeah, it wasn't whatsoever. It's still kind of the air raid, not fully. I mean, they run and shoot. They really love to throw the ball around a lot. They're very quick to get to the line of scrimmage, very quick offense. So the guys they have they still have the guys that kind of fit the offense that Leach left behind. This defense, though, they allowed 38.5 points per game. They only had 2 sacks per game, which isn't the worst number. It's better than some of the other teams we've talked about.
Yeah.
But they got torn up in the secondary, man. Allowed 300 plus in 3 of the final 4 games. The one outlier was Keaton Slovis, who had 282, but he had 4 touchdowns in the first quarter, and he completed 79% of his passes. So these guys are just not very good.
No.
I like what they have outside corner, though. Jalen Watson, he was really good last year. The rest of the secondary needs to be better. Caleb Ford-Demet, he transfers from Old Dominion. Very solid cover man. So they have some potential, but all around, I'm not really too high on this defense.
Nope.
They do get back Jahad Woods, though. Very good football player, 319 tackles. He had 141 in 2019, in 2019 rather. So he's a really good ball player. Anything I'm really missing on this defense? Or do you think it's just kind of like a lost cause to really explain much more?
Yeah, I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah, Jutsu, Rogers, Jahad Woods. Linebackers, both 6 years. They'll do their jobs, not spectacular. Defensive backs, laughably bad the last couple of years. George Hicks, I'm just going to say he's not the best. Jalen Watson has, some potential. Chris Jackson, I think he transferred in from Michigan State. We'll kind of see how he kind of moves in there. Armani Marsh, he's kind of in there. Daniel Isom, he returned in his last year of eligibility, but kind of looking at this, you have experience, but you don't really have talent. You have defensive tackles that fill up space, but that's all they do,
No penetration at all.
Nothing. I don't see this defense being great. They can be picked apart. I think, honestly, the only bright spot is going to be maybe Jalen Watson. I think he showed some flashes the last couple of years, but other than that, nothing really.
Yeah, in Washington State and the Leach era, they were so disappointing year after year. They'd be so good, and then this is the year they're going to beat Washington, and they just get blown out 45-10. It was so frustrating watching them and then going like, I'm going to pick them this year, and they just get handed, So it's hard to really expect Washington to be better than 4-8 this year with that defense. I really love their offense, though, but expecting them to compete in the conference, they couldn't do it with Leach. I don't know if they're going to do it with Rolovich, so.
Yeah.
Oregon State, you have them at 2-10. I think they could probably win up to 5 or 6 games because Jonathan Smith, I think he's really that good of a coach. They landed Sam Neuer from Colorado. I don't think he's going to beat out Tristan Giba, though. Oregon State ranked towards the bottom of the Pac-12 in passing offense. Giba, he was a 9th-ranked pro-style passer in the class of 2017, started his career at Nebraska. I think he has a real chance to resurrect this offense. You saw what Jake Luton did. He did wonders in his second year with Jonathan Smith. I think he had like 28 touchdowns, 3 picks, averaged 250 to 300 a game. He was really good. This is Giba's second season as well. The California native last year completed 62% of his passes for 824 yards, 3 scores. Also had 3 picks in 4 games last season. I think it's going to be a breakout year from Giba. Do you agree, or do you think Neuer is going to take the starting reins?
I think that's a hard question. Giba, he's coming back from injury. He didn't play in spring. He's back for fall. He was ripping some in fall practices. There's also Chance Nolan. He's solid quarterback, pretty mobile. Then you got, Sam Neuer, kind of like we were saying back when we're talking about Colorado, just such a, smart kid. But I think if he picks up the system quick, I think Neuer can definitely be up there. He's he's a very, smart guy. He's going to take care of the football. I think, Sam Neuer is probably my pick. And I think if he's able to kind of like handle this offense, they can definitely win 4 or 5 games, take a couple from maybe like Stanford or Cal. I can see that happening.
Yeah, and whoever gets the start, I think Giba gets the start. You think Neuer does? We'll see what happens. I think they have a nice supporting cast. Trevon Bradford, he's going to probably move back to the slot. That's where he played his best. They have a receiver named Champ Flemings, who's 5'5", but he was the team's second best pass catcher in 2019. So that's some experience and production that you can probably lean on. Trajan Lindsay, he's been a moderate producer over his career. They also landed Tre'Shaun Harrison from Florida State, another stellar slot man. I like what they have a receiver. Running back as well. They ran for nearly 20 yards per game last season. Jamar Jefferson, he won Conference Player of the Year last year on offense. He's gone. But B.J. Baylor will share a backfield with Deshaun Fenwick, who comes over from South Carolina. It's also a very solid offensive line. Center Nathan Eldridge is a guy I think that might battle and contend for All-American honors in the conference. I really like that kid. What are your thoughts on the supporting cast? You think it's going to be strong enough to make one of these quarterbacks stand out, or just going to be still bottom of the conference in passing?
Passing, that's going to be a question mark because you don't know who's the quarterback. I think wide receiver you have Trevon Bradford, but all these other guys, they're guys that love to they get those sweeps. They're not really downfield threats. They have a couple good tight ends, Musgrave and Quitoriano. They're pretty good blockers, decent hands, have some experience. Their OO line has, returning all 5 guys. They have an experienced 6th guy too. Also got a transfer from Utah State. So I think they have a solid offensive line, which is always something you want to look for, but they don't have that tall of a ceiling. Most of the guys are like 2-3 stars. So I think, with the question marks at quarterback, you have the Baylor and Fenwick, both never been a lead rusher. They've always been that backup role. So, it's just a question mark. You got to see, the offensive line is going to kind of take them where they want to go. Also look out for Demir Collins. He was OSU's top recruit. He might get some rushes this year as well.
Yeah, I think it's a solid offense all around. I'm not really sure. I'm not expecting to score 40 a game or nothing. They averaged 28.9 points per game last year. Over or under on that number for 2021?
What was the number again?
28.9.
Oh, 28.9. Sorry, I was thinking wins. 20.9. I can see them going under. I have a feeling they're probably going to average around like 24.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the over. I think they can hit that 30. They had 31 a game with Jake Luton in the second year. I'm just bent on Giba in the second year just having a big breakout. I think Jonathan Smith as a quarterback coach. I think that's just, that's what I expect from him. If it doesn't happen, then 24 is probably going to be the right number. Their defense though is going to be a big problem. They give up a lot. I think they should certainly improve. They get back almost 80% of production. Linebackers Avery Roberts and Omar Spates. They've ranked first and second respectively in tackles on the team each of the past 2 seasons. Roberts, he took big steps in coverage. But outside of that, there's not too much talent on this defense. Elijah Jones comes from Kansas. Many are expecting him to fill Mayshawn Wright's role. Wright, he plays for the Cowboys now, a very good corner. Yeah. So I think he's going to fill that role with ease, but he's really good in press for Kansas. But altogether, secondary isn't great. And other than Roberts and Spates, they don't really have too many playmakers.
Nope.
So, 7 sacks in 7 games, another team who really couldn't get to the quarterback. I believe they beat Oregon in a shootout, but, I guess you could kind of say that was a fluky win because other than that, they didn't really have too much last season. They just got grinded down significantly on defense. And, again, their offense lacked consistency other than Jamar Jefferson. So, I think 2-10 is a solid mark. I don't think it's without. I think it's certainly feasible that's going to happen. They played teams really tough last year though, so they didn't ever get blown out in a game. So 2 wins, I think I agree with you on that number, but I think they can certainly win 4 to 5. I don't know. I think we kind of have different opinions on this team, but altogether, that's the conference. We're going to go ahead and fire shoot some awards before we wrap this up. Starting with Offensive Player of the Year, I have Keaton Slovis from USC. I think he obviously fits the offense tremendously. They're going to throw the ball a lot. He has so much talent every year. Are you going to go with Slovis, or do you think somebody else like DTR is going to break out and win the award?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I feel like DTR is kind of that sneaky pick. I can also see Broussard kind of like taking the reins at Colorado and winning it, but DTR, I think he had, especially watching that USC UCLA game, with all the stakes and all that, he was deadly accurate. He could run whenever he wanted, put the ball right where he wanted almost every single time. So I think if he's kind of like keeping up that consistency, I think he can definitely be, what Chip Kelly's been looking for. And I think that's my kind of like sleeper pick.
Yeah, I don't think he used his legs nearly as much as he did in 2019. I'd like to see him get more. He had more carries in 2019, but no yards whatsoever. He had a lot more yards last year.
Yeah.
So and on half the touches. So I think if they can replicate that, he could certainly have a lot of production for UCLA. Defensive player of the year, I have Utah's Devin Lloyd. I think he's phenomenal. Who are you going with? Do you think Lloyd's going to be the starter? Do you think Kayvon is a little better?
I think Kayvon Thibodeau, I think just he's a monster, just watching his tape, he's just insane. I think if anything, if he doesn't win, it's because the guys are double, triple teaming him. But yeah, that whole Oregon, front seven's crazy. I think he's going to be the leader of that, and I think he's going to be able to get into backfields, whenever he wants, and that whole Ohio State game. That's going to be a nice launching pad to kind of show everyone, this kid's for real.
He'll be matched up with Thainer Munthard or Nicholas Petit-Foray, top tackle duo in the country, so it's going to be fun to watch. Next award, Coach of the Year, I have Kyle Whittingham with Utah at 10-2. Who are you going with?
I think this is kind of like, Kyle Whittingham is always a great pick. I think, I was kind of trying to think outside the box here. I think Jimmy Lake can kind of, show what's up. You could say, Carl Durrell, but I think Jimmy Lake, this is his second year, his first year with COVID, just trying to switch everything up. And I think he did a great job. I think, he's going to show that with not as much talent as other teams in this conference, he's going to be able to pull out a pretty strong 9-10 win season. And I think he's going to be deserving of it too.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are the top two contenders, Whittingham and Jimmy Lake. Final award we have here, newcomer of the year, can be either incoming freshman or a transfer. I'm going with Corey Foreman from USC. I think the number one recruit's going to see a lot of time on the field. And with Drake Jackson on the other side, they're going to throw a lot of different looks at people. I think he's going to have some really good impact performances, some pretty solid production as well. Who are you leaning towards on this award?
I'm gonna have to stick with you, Corey Foreman. He's a guy that's rated so high coming out of high school. You can't go wrong with that. There's a lot of transfers coming in, more than normal, but I don't think any of them can really compare to Corey Foreman. I was thinking that 5-star from Washington, the quarterback Ward or whatever his name is. Yeah, and then again, just his spring was not the best, and maybe a Ty Thompson, but he's probably going to redshirt. So I think Corey Foreman's the best pick.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that USC wins this award regardless with all the transfers they added.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, Foreman, incoming freshman. So I think this is USC's award to lose. Not a big deal if they don't. It's just a fun part of the game. You get to see who really stands out. That's pretty much it for the conference, man. I really appreciate it. You got anything else you'd like to
add? Nothing much. I think definitely in that north, California, I feel like they might be able to run some, but on that, nothing really.
Yeah, I agree. We both have Cal and Colorado at 5-7 each, and I think Colorado in the South can make a run just like you think Cal can in the North. So I think that'll be it, though. We really like this conference. It's going to be exciting to see what happens. And once more, man, appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, guys, that'll be it. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all that. Catch you guys next time.
See ya.